say you've just scrambled Far Easedale Gill in the Lake District and you want to keep the party going, then what are your options? Well, I'm going to briefly review what those options are for some of the exit gullies up onto the crags from the top of the valley, and then choose one of them and go up it. Think about the add-on scrambles that you can do at the end of doing Far Easedale Gill. There was one further down the valley up to Moment Crag. I'm going to reject that because you'd have to walk a long way down it. There are two here that you might be able to see, one there and one there, running up to Ferngill Crag. I'm going to reject those because you've got to walk quite a way back down to get to them, and also they run out of steam 2/3 of the way up the hillside. Panning right across to the top of the valley, the very top scramble is one that goes up there. It's moderately short, fairly steep, definitely a possibility, wouldn't require you to walk back down very far. But the one I'm going to choose is this one here that runs up the other side of this crag here, which is Broadstone Head. And I'm going to choose that one because, firstly, it looks to be the longest, and secondly, it's going to bring me back a little sooner onto the path that will take me back down into Grasmere. Here's the start point, and even though we've had a run of dry weather, it is beginning as a small gill. Only a modest gradient to begin with, but then the gradient winds up as it gets up towards the crag. In this early part of the route, you move pretty much straight into a basic scramble, and it's a really nice surface, in contrast, for example, to Far Easedale Gill, because it's either moss or dry rock. Very little algae to worry about. When I said basic scramble, it's really basic. I've barely been using my hands so far. Perhaps going to change a little as the boulders get bigger and the slope inclines slightly more upwards. From walking, it morphed into clambering, and here's the first small section that one might regard as something like a grade 1 scramble. Next, the scramble clamber hybrid that is clambering up a 15-foot bouldery section. Unfortunately, the algae are back, so slightly slippery, and because humans do not pass this way, some of the rock piles are a bit unstable and you need to take some care. I'd assumed that the scramble was going to be dry, but even this far up there is still water. Can't call what's coming up a waterfall scramble, but it's a nice looking grade 1 30-foot scramble, and I'm hoping that the noise of the circling buzzards overhead is not a bad omen. At estimate, I'm about 3/4 of the way up by now and moving into a small field of boulder clambering. Hopefully you can see the top ahead with the promise of sunny intervals. This again is typical of the top part of the scramble. Mix of boulders to be walked and clambered over, and some mini waterfalls to scramble up. Now at the final section before the top, and a couple of grade 1 options on the left. Slippery waterfall, and on the right, a little bit overhung, so maybe equally as challenging. I'm now at the top of what I'm going to call Broadstone Head East Gill. It is a bog standard grade 1 scramble. Nice things about it, it's got a mix of some walking, clambering, scrambling, little bits of waterfall, and particularly I love the fact that in general it's pretty grippy underfoot, and it's also quite short as well. The downside though, it's just a bog standard grade 1 scramble. There's a bit too much walking. On a wet day there are some algae smeared rocks that would cause you a little bit of trouble, and more generally there's just nothing to set the pulse of racing about coming up. So as an add-on to Far Easedale Gill, I'm not quite so sure about it, because Far Easedale Gill, at least the final few waterfalls, were much more interesting. But I'm going to head over the other side of Broadstone Head to see if what I'm going to call Broadstone West Gill has something better to offer. Here is the just about discernible start of Broadstone Head West Gill. So far, in comparison to its east brother, West is more scrambly but more slippery. Back once again to a profile of a narrow ravine, this one somewhat longer and looking to be somewhat more overhung than the previous one. Signs of fresh rockfall, and the fact that the rocks are quite jagged means that I've decided time to put on a helmet for this gill. Not sure how I'm going to make it up what's behind me because it looks to be incredibly smooth with no foot or handholds whatsoever. Luckily there's an escape route just round the side. As it turns out, I was just about able to make it up, finding a couple of little ledges sufficient for hands and feet. Felt very good to be able to do that, and coming towards the end now, last two small greasy scrambles up. What are they? Trickles rather than waterfalls. Broadstone Head West Gill is ugly. It is slippery, it is overgrown, it is narrow, but it is also definitely better than its eastern brother. It is anything but a bog standard grade 1 scramble. I would rate it at around a grade 1.5, and what I particularly liked about it was pushing me to use techniques that I had not used for Far Easedale Gill. So I would definitely recommend it as an add-on for Far Easedale Gill, and whereas I would give the East Broadstone Head Gill 6.5 out of 10, the West one I'm going to say 8 out of 10. Yeah, really liked it. Just as an add-on to the add-on, if you've still got energy and enthusiasm for scrambling after you've come up Broadstone Head West Gill, then further even above that is this, which looks like a decent scramble. I think it's Burke's Gill going right up to the top. Here's a map of the route in from Grasmere, though the scrambles shown in red aren't worth a long walk, shown in blue, just to do them on their own. As I've noted, they're only worth considering if you're doing the scramble up Far Easedale Gill, which is covered in a separate video, one which fortunately doesn't have quite so much flair from the sunshine. Further details of these two Broadstone Head scrambles are given in the text description underneath the video.